Hello, everyone, and welcome to tonight's session of Unplugged with Ross. My name is Roslyn Miner. Tonight we have episode 4, and the topic is raising humans in a very different world. Now, interestingly, I am a millennial, an 80s kid. The playbook that my parents used back in the day, and even back in the day for our panelists, if that was to be applied today, I think we would have breaking news. It wouldn't apply. We're currently living in a very digitized world. We are currently living in a world whereby, you know, how we responded to our parents, how we responded to the environment is completely different. So tonight we are trying to understand. It's not that the children have changed, it's just that the environment has changed. It's more digital, it's more tech enabled. Work has become more demanding, careers are more demanding, school is more demanding. So raising a child in the present day and age, everyone is learning, not only the child experiencing the world as afresh, but also as the parent, trying to get a fair balance of what is right, what is fair, what cannot be tolerated. So tonight, my guest, my panelist is Muthoni Njogona. And career-wise, she is, numbers. Numbers are her favorite thing. So it's just numbers and insights. But not today, we are not picking on that side of her. We are going to pick, on the soft side of things, but also I bet she will be plugging in to where her career, blooms. So Muthoni has over 17 years across research, customer strategy, and transformation in African financial services. And she brings a unique perspective on people, data, and change, with experience serving on school boards and mentoring young people. As you can see, I think she's the right person to have this conversation with. She's experienced it firsthand, not only on a leadership perspective, but also on a personal perspective. Outside work, she enjoys marathons, golf, and nature photography. Muthoni, karibu sana.
Asante sana, Roslyn, and thank you for the warm welcome. I think I want to say, first of all, I'm very privileged to be on your podcast. If you haven't been given feedback, I think you're doing some fantastic work in just educating us to learn, relearn, and unlearn on issues around life. Thank you for the introduction. Sometimes when you hear somebody introduce you, you wonder whether it did me. Yeah. So thank you for the introduction. I have worked a lot with young people. I'm also a parent of an adult who's a voter. She's a Kokadi. It means that she has a voter's card and also have one turning sweet 16 this year. So it's a conversation where we have to learn. And let's see how this conversation goes. Thank you, Rosalind, for having me. I appreciate.
Thank you very much, Muthoni. And as is the norm, let's have a couple of interesting statistics. So the first one is 1 in 7 adolescents aged 10 to 19 experience a mental health condition. So the question for us is, what do you think children today are silently struggling with that adults may be missing? And I think matters mental health apply to everyone, regardless of age. We will be struggling with our mental health at one stage of our lives. So how are we? Are we missing the red flags? And how can we tackle that? According to UNICEF, 1 in 3 internet users globally is a child. So we beg the question, how do we guide children through a digital world that we as parents are also learning to navigate? Another interesting statistic by UNICEF is 1.3 billion school-aged children between 3 and 17 do not have internet access at home. Now, I know typically people will say a lot of screen time, but there's the other side to the conversation where millions of children do not have access at all. So when we talk about digital childhood, are we also talking about inequality and opportunity? And I think that even if we were to look at, we come home to Kenya, we are all not accessing, not all kids are accessing internet
Correct.
compared to depending on where you are. If you're in the towns and the big cities, probability is there, but still it does not guarantee that child is having access to internet. Last but not least, according to ILO, 2.3 billion people are expected to need care by 2030. We often say it takes a village to raise a child, but perhaps the bigger question is what happens when the village itself is changing? And I think a more deeper question that we should ask ourselves is how do modern parents build meaningful support systems when extended family may live far away, communities are changing, and parents themselves are stretched? So, as it stands, a lot is going on.
Right.
I remember back in the day, if you moved into an estate, oftentimes the neighbor would come and welcome you. Karibu neighbor. Nowadays, you can live in an apartment complex. It doesn't matter if it's of 15 units, 40 units, 100 units, but the probability of someone knowing who their next door neighbor is very low. So, where is our village? So, it's going to be a very interesting discussion simply because it's a digital world, and the statistics are showing us that on one hand, there is a lot of exposure when it comes to the internet, the ramifications of, the internet or the digital world, and how can we navigate that. So to start us off,
Yeah.
we often talk about children need their parents, but what do parents need to remain well themselves? You cannot pour from an empty cup.
Interesting. I love the question. And I love also the statistics you're sharing. I think when you think about parenting, so I've just talked about I'm a parent to an 18-year-old and a 16-year-old. I think we forget that parents are also growing. Your children are growing, parents are also growing. Um, People in the marriage circles usually say that marriage does not have a manual, so does parenting. So you're not told when you grow up one day, Rosalind, that this is the manual that when you become a parent, number one, do this. Number two, we are juggling, we are groping in the dark, hoping that one day you have raised a human being that is fantastic, that has manners, that has values. And I think that's where perhaps we put so much pressure on ourselves, and I think the society has allowed us or has taught us to get to that point. But I think it's for us to remember that we are growing as much as our kids are growing, and we allow ourselves give ourselves the grace to actually learn and make mistakes in this parenting world.
I think I remember growing up, oftentimes either your teachers or your parents could slide a comment, why can't you be like XYZ? But we fail to understand that the circumstance, the environment, and the situation at hand varies from one person to the next. And you rightly said, nothing has a handbook. You get married, no handbook. Become a parent, no handbook. You go join a new office, a new job, in as much as you will have onboarding and induction and all policies, you still
Right.
don't have an actual handbook to help you navigate the system.
Correct.
So, for a parent who is listening in now, what would you, or maybe something that you did when maybe you were a young parent, what did you do to make you feel a slight inch of sanity?
Oh,
Because everyone will give you a formula what worked for them, but maybe what worked for them doesn't work for you.
oh,
So,
my mom. So my mom was my everything. Like this is I call mommy. What should I do here? Nini nitafanya sijui. I think it's my mom, and then also I have a network. My biggest network was my sister-in-law. So she would support me a lot, raise the kids because she's raised kids before. My late mom-in-law also supported me a lot. So for me, it's building a community of people who are older than me who teach me. And I think that's how we've learned. And I remember in our church, we used to have a group of young parents. I think we used to call ourselves the Benjamins. So we would meet sort of every month, a Sunday within in a month, and just to meet and just share. They're sharing. It was a good avenue of complaining, but it was also a good avenue of sharing. Yeah, the way. Yeah, you have to look for an outlet. So that was an outlet. So just having that community. So my having my family, having that church community, really has helped demystify and make things look a bit easier, and also learning through the mistakes, because we've made a lot of mistakes, I think, parenting.
I don't think there's any parent who would stand and say, I got it right the first step. And I like that, and I love the fact that you build a community around you, be it from family, be it from friends, be it from, say, community from church. They say a problem shared is half solved.
Right.
So it doesn't matter if you went to rant. Just by ranting, you're actually thinking through the rant, and someone else will have an idea for you. So yes, parents out there, build a community, a true community, not just, for the sake of it. Just build a true community so that you also appreciate that you're not only, or you're not alone in this journey. Someone else might have undergone what you've undergone. And I think vulnerability should be embraced in this journey.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, to the next question. We're raising children in a world that is rapidly changing, but parents are navigating that change too.
Yeah.
So we have Claude and ChatGPT and all these tech things that I know I would not even name half of them if I was to sit next to a Gen Z. So we are all navigating the digital world together.
Right.
How do we get like a fair balance? Because you're learning, they are learning. You do not want them to be exposed to the extreme dark web side of technology. And we've definitely seen unfortunate TikTok trends that have happened that children have ended up unaliving themselves. So how do we go about this rapidly changing world?
Great question. I think there's this quote by Steve Jobs where he talks about stay hungry, stay foolish. And why I like it is that what he keeps telling us is you need to continue looking for information. So we are talking about AI. So you've spoken about Claude, you have Gemini, you have everything. I can't list the same way you're listing. I'm sure there's somebody somewhere in somewhere in a valley trying to figure out a new code for a new AI. We have to allow ourselves to learn these new technologies. The worst thing you can do, Rosalind, is to pretend that you're ignorant. Today, children below us, so our children know more than us. So they know all these technologies. So here you are pretending that you're living in the rock ages, not wanting to learn. Learn. Ask them a question. Let it be an opportunity for you even to be taught, because I think sometimes the disservice we have as this generation is that you think being taught by a younger person is foolishness. I mean, when Steve Jobs says, stay hungry, stay foolish. I mean, stay foolish, stay hungry. It's like, keep learning. You will not know everything. And so for me, I'm saying it's stay curious, learn alongside your children, ask questions. You're talking about how do you create the balance, use the word balance. I don't know what balance looks like, but I think you will only learn the balance once you understand what you're trying to balance. I don't know if I'm making sense. I think I've even said too many English words there. So once you understand these are the demerits, these are the merits, then I say I can create a balance, or I can create a boundary around this particular issue once I've understood. The challenge is saying no to something that you've not understood, which effectively is not helping in your view, whether if it's your child, if it's your niece, it's anybody around you, you're not helping the situation. So I would say stay foolish, stay hungry, understand what you're creating the boundary for, and then once you understand that, then you can create the limits. Once you've had that understanding.
I like how you've placed it as one, the need for adopting growth mindset. We are all learning. And they normally say, like in mentorship, you can be the one providing the mentorship, but there's also reverse mentorship. Now, in a digital world, the probability of you being, mentored or trained by someone younger than you is very high because they have grown in that world.
Correct.
When you were growing up, you had limitations with the extent of technology you would be exposed to. To them, that is second nature to them, which brings about the aspect of curiosity and humility. Just because you're learning from someone
Right.
younger than you doesn't negate the fact that you might be wiser in some aspects. So in this world of tech, AI, social media, maybe we should be looking at it from an angle of, okay, what is good about this? What is bad about that? What are the risks? Because I bet the same users, the same children also know the demerits of all this tech that is there. So we can look at it like a partnership. Yes, you're still the adult, yes. But you can have conversations that will allow either party, one, to learn, to be curious,
Right.
but you are not boxed away that you lose your curiosity and willingness to be, creative and innovative.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love that. I love what you're saying.
Yeah. So with that, then we head on to the next. The digital experience isn't the same for a toddler, a teenager, and a young adult. You have young adults actually in the
Yeah.
house, and nowadays kids are very expressive. So you will find children that the screen time. Sometimes you will find a parent may be struggling, and if a child or a toddler is kicking a fuss, they will be given the screen to calm them down, and they will calm down. But unfortunately, you really do not understand to what extent is that screen time positive, and then it flips over to the demerits. Then you go to the teenage side of things. There's the educative side of tech, and then
Right.
there is the absolute madness of tech. So, how should we approach the digital world, as our children evolve? What are your thoughts on that?
Hard question. I'm saying that question, Mike, because I've had an argument with my brother, my younger brother. So my brother thinks it's okay to expose children to technology. Eh, And I'm saying this with a lot of love to my brother. Then on the other hand, I'm saying maybe perhaps we don't need to make them stay glued to a technology. Maybe they need to learn things outside. uh, Go catch a grasshopper or catch a beetle or go play with the grass and eat worms. I don't know. Do something. So it's a question where it's a bit touchy, but when you think about it, so for example, in school, like today in Kenya, the curriculum mandates for children to use technology. So either the technology is parents are tasked provide the gadgets and take them to school for children to learn. If that's not the case, the school provides the gadgets and they are taught as a group. Then you talked about the marginalization, where you're saying some children in certain areas in this country don't have access to the technology. So it's a balance, and maybe I don't know how we can. Maybe perhaps you can think about this, but I think for me it's to try and understand. So, for example, if you're using it for educational purposes, okay, how do you protect? So let me give you an example I've used. So when children are growing, so I was being told, oh, you need to be okay. So I had said I will never give my children a phone. Never ever, parenting, and you use never ever all those adjectives that exist in this world. Okay, so my daughter passes well in the KCPE, the uncle gives her a phone. So what do? I go and I put on there's a family app where you can control.
Mhm.
So I said, because I want to creep and see what they're doing on Instagram and other places. Well, I've used the email addresses which I have, which I actually went and opened an account with. Well, they're very smart. So they used new email addresses, which they opened for themselves, went ahead and blocked me on Instagram. My children are listening to this podcast, they'll be very angry with me, but that's the reality. So, so we are here busy trying to control things. Let me laugh. But they are there 100 steps better than you. So I'm saying we have to learn the pros. The pros are there, but you have to keep talking to them. You have to keep talking to them. I keep telling them, make sure that whatever you put on the internet remembers everything. Do you want to erase it? Remember, you're growing. Don't put things that you will regret later in life. And it's a conversation you have to keep having as a parent. I know some conversations are hard. Some of these our teenagers, they know more than you. They don't want to hear, but you have to keep having the conversation. Don't give up until you make them understand that there's a reason I'm doing this for your safety and not for, and I'm not trying to control you. So I hope I've answered your question, but that was my long answer to your question.
Actually, your response has brought a lot of memories. So I remember growing up, or anyone that grew in the 80s and the 90s,
Right.
we were not so glued to the TVs. We actually spent more time outside. You know, it was more, actually, sometimes you could have a fight with your parent because you're always outside. So the conversation is, when do you ever sit in the house? And maybe if someone was to do a research, I think maybe companies that sell detergents were making more sales then than they do
That now.
today. Now, you come to the world today, it's now a concrete jungle. Children, I mean, a patch of grass for them to play and roll on, it's no longer available because
Yeah.
we have turned onto all these skyscrapers. There's no greens, nothing.
Yeah.
So we might also be demanding of kids to go outside and play, but they're going to play in a concrete jungle, and they don't
Right.
even have the space to play because the cars are parked in the parking lot. And
Right.
any attempt to play, and there's a
Yes.
stone, a car owner is going to cry because a child decided that their car was the perfect board, and all
Yes.
that happens.
For art.
So you wonder, do we start creating summer camps where kids can go and be kids?
Yeah.
Because when they go to school, it pains me when you are driving to work and then there's a school bus with a child fast asleep. And you wonder, so where do you start? When does a child get the opportunity to be a child? And when do you also, because of the realities of this world, when the child wants to be a child and they want your attention, you are here looking at reports, deadlines, work, traffic, and everything. So what happens? Kids have screens all over. Someone is doing shopping, a child is glued to the tablet or a phone. You're going on a safari. Instead of them looking outside and seeing trees move, it is mommy, I'm bored. I want. You have to keep them entertained. So are we going down? Are we going reverse? Or are we undoing ourselves? Because yes, monitoring is required, it's important. But there's also the reality. So what do we do? And this is not a perfect answer. It is, what do we do?
So remember, these same parents we talk about. So think about it. So, and I've just gone back to our parents. So our parents keep telling us the way they grew up, They never used to have shoes. The trousers I wore was a hand down from my brother. You are not there, so you don't know whether they're saying the truth. Um, and I can imagine even at that time, I'm sure our grandparents thought their children, they are lost. Okay. Um, I think what I'm trying to say is that every generation has its own challenges. I think for millennials, we have been born, we were born during when technology was there. So we have learned with the technology. These other ones that are coming, we have learned, they are learning, they came, I think, when they just came out of their parents' womb, they were touching a gadget. So it's the life, it's the way they've been brought up. But also think about the environment the parents are also growing up in. Fast-paced environment. You have deadlines. COVID came. The expectation nowadays you can work from anywhere. So home can be anywhere. The shamba can be the beach, can be anywhere. Uh, and sometimes I know, and I'm speaking as a parent who has sometimes has had to go to work on Sundays. There. I think there is a part in life where things are hard until you get to where you get the balance. Or if you don't get the balance, you get the rhythm. If I want to use the word, so
Yeah.
you decide it's whenever I'm with my children, I'm with my children. If I'm going to be at work, I'm at work. If I'm at a social gathering, I'm at a social gathering. And I think maybe Rosalind, it's we at some point, even as we are seeing those parents struggling, because I know I have been there, is that there's a phase in life you cannot escape. You have to struggle, you have to feel the friction. You want to be a perfect mother, a perfect parent, a perfect worker. You have to be a perfect daughter to your parents. I'm supporting, you're there for your family. Then it becomes a lot, a lot, a lot. And then at some point, you're like, oh, hold on a minute. I think I'm forgetting myself. You step back and you start reflecting. So as you're getting out of the friction and as you're getting out of the pain, something grows in you because remember, you're not being stagnant. Your children are also growing. So I think as we move along, you will get the balance and you will get a rhythm to manage. I don't know what the rest of your viewers think.
Actually, you've mentioned something, the need to be present. And you might not get it perfectly,
Yeah.
but whenever you get that moment, allow yourself to be present, not only for yourself, but also the parent, that social gathering, be it at work. Allow yourself to be present. And I think when you mentioned about the need for values, the need for, every parent wants to bring up a child who is thoughtful, who is kind, who is going to thrive in this ever-changing world.
Right.
But at the end of the day, there's only much you can do as a parent, and then the child must also decide what trajectory they want to take. So even in their best efforts, you and I know there are friends when we were young, the parents were very strict. And then when they were done with high school or university, they flipped a switch. And then there was that child who was always beaten every day of their life. Everyone, the absolute MCA of the village, known by everyone. And you're thinking to yourself, what will become of them? And then they grew up. And you find them today, and they are the absolute playbook of parenting because they did that as a child. So I
Yeah.
think if you restrict your child too much,
Yeah.
it can go to way. At the same time, if you put too much freedom, it can also be very risky. Which
Correct.
which now begs the next question: is the world safe for our children? Because with every advancement, you know, the, the intention is for it to be positive. However, it's not always the case. So how do we go about that?
You're asking me if the world safe for our children? Oh, yes, it is. Because it's the world we are in. Um, how do you, let me ask you, how are you defining safety? Let me just
I
step back
think
and understand. Yeah.
if you were to, I think even if you were to define safety at this moment in time, I don't even think it would be to the typical dictionary
Mm, mm,
definition of it.
mm, mm,
I think for me, if I was to base it on the topic of tonight, safety would be number one, an angle whereby the party, say in this case, either the parent or the child, is aware of the risks, yeah, the merits and the demerits of a certain infrastructure.
mhm,
They know the extent to which, is allowable. So, for example, when you're saying that someone needs to be aware that the internet never forgets,
yeah.
they are aware of that. They also need, for me, safety would be for them to know or identify that whatever trends you will see out here, it doesn't mean that they are all safe to do and you should jump into that trend for the sake of clout, you know. So safety to me, I think, is that capacity to not only identify the good and the bad, but also to ensure that you are living within that boundary that not only allows for that creativity, but you know that if you go beyond that line, may the gods help you. That to me is how I would look at safety in the context of tonight's topic.
Okay. This is what I was just when you were explaining, and I thought I can I can provide the environment, but there are things that are beyond my control. Okay. I can tell you the pros and cons of using technology. I can tell you that if you don't look right, look left, look right again, then cross the road, the chances of you being hit by a car are very high. Okay. I can tell you, you as a 2-year-old, don't take that knife. It will cut you. Sometimes in Kiswahili, I don't know if you have other speakers who don't speak, your listeners who don't speak Swahili, say, mtoto akililia wembe umpatie, meaning you go and get hurt and then you learn the consequences of your actions. So I think the environment, when you say talk about safety, we are where we are, Rosalind, fast-paced, highly tech environment. We are growing generation, very literate, very educated people. And I think what we need to do is sometimes it's to let go of the control of trying to make a world that is perfect because it does not exist. You can create the boundaries. You can say, lock your children, don't let them go and experience, don't let them get hurt, don't let them get, if they're trying to run, you say, you put them on a helmet, you put on everything, even including niggers and everything. One day they need to fall and they need to feel the pain and they need to understand it's okay to fall, it's okay to feel the pain, and you're going to recover. So we can do as much as we can by creating communities, by instilling values, by teaching, not giving up. But I don't want to give the impression that we will ever get to perfection because honestly, it does not exist. But you can create the environment to teach and also allow them to experience life the way it is without sugarcoating it because one day you won't be there, so let them experience and see that life is actually life the way it is.
I couldn't agree more. You actually brought to mind helicopter parenting. The parents that want to buff their kids from all form of hurt.
And then you do this, yeah.
Yes. And then when the cookie crumbles, you are wondering, where did I go wrong? I remember growing up, there was a time, I think the first time I used public transport without my parents, I think I was 7 or 8.
Mm-hmm.
So that put us in a matatu. and sent us to our uncles. My mom was having, I think, the record panic attack, going, my children have gone. We showed up at uncle's, and he goes, who did you come with? Who brought you? By the time we were done with the errand that we had been sent, actually, two of our uncles took us back home because they could not believe that our dad put us in a matatu
Yeah.
and we were sent. And they came home and they were told, yeah, we put them, they have to learn how to, navigate. And now was the first time for me when it comes to matatu. Yeah. So you're looking at a 7-year-old with my elder sister, and life continues. But then, unfortunately, in the world today, you will also find helicopter parents, the ones that want to, if they do wrong in school, it's not the child's fault, it's the teacher's fault. When I remember very well, I was caned back in primary school. Those are the 90s. Okay, and I know some people will be listening and go, who canes who? Well, back in the 90s, yes, you would be caned. Yeah.
And yet here you are. You survived.
Yes,
Yeah.
we did survive. You do a mistake. If your neighbor beats you, they will beat you and then they will take you home and you will be beaten by your parent.
Yes.
And pray that both parents are not in the house at that time, but it doesn't matter because when the other one shows up, we continue with the beating. So discipline back in the day was not negotiable. But nowadays, helicopter parenting, we are guarding or protecting sometimes these kids too much that they fail to experience life, as you correctly put it. And there's feedback here we have received from Mr. Kelvin that he says,
Oh, okay.
what has changed is us. We are parenting in an environment none of our own parents had to navigate. Algorithms, screens, constant comparison online.
Wow.
And I think the real skill parents need now isn't just learning new things, it's learning to unlearn. Unlearning the idea that busy equals good parenting, and learning the instinct to hand over a phone to buy 5 minutes of peace,
Yeah.
and learning some of the discipline styles we grew up with. You can say that again, because what worked as compliance back then often just breeds anxiety now. Very true,
Yeah.
because I
Very
know of
true.
people that say, I will never bring up my kids the way I was brought up. So it is less about reinventing child development and more about relearning how to show up for it in a world that is constantly pulling our attention somewhere else.
Wow, that's a fantastic comment from Kelvin. Thank you so much. We are
Thank
also
you.
here to learn, Kelvin. Thank you.
Asante sana. So yes, unlearning,
Yes.
unlearning, learning, and relearning
And relearning.
is
Yes.
something that we must all adapt and embrace. So childhood itself is changing, and so are the opportunities for connection. With smaller families, children growing up without siblings, busy parents, increasingly structured lives. Where do children learn negotiation, conflict, empathy, sharing, and simply how to be with other people through social skills? Are we unintentionally replacing natural social development with organized activities and digital interaction? I think that's a yes or no situation depending on, the platform.
I'll give this example, and I know my first child, is going to strangle me. Now, now, my daughter, the 18-year-old, so I have girls. So she used to be, she was not as competitive as her other sister. Her other sister is also going to kill me, but it's okay. I'm a millennial. We've survived everything on this earth. There's
There you
nothing
go.
we can't survive. So in her timid, so in school, her she's very timid. She never used to talk much. So I was like, hapa hakuna kakitu. So I used to send her over to my nephews, and they are boys. So boys they are rough. So day one she goes, she comes back scared. she can't defend herself. The next time she goes visits, she's standing up. In essence, I'm saying you have to throw somebody into the frying pan and figure it out. The one thing about what you've asked is that we are here, and I would go to Kevin's point. We are living in this world the way it is.
Yeah.
If we pretend to want to bring up our children by ourselves in this busyness of ours, as Kevin has said, we are not going to achieve anything. So you have to look for a community. You can have people who are all over the place, but I'm sure, Rosalind, even in your neighborhood, there's a community there. There's a Mama Boga, there's somebody in church, there's one neighbor. At least you have one neighbor who you can speak to. Ukiona huyo mtoto akirandaranda, hebu uniambie. Umuulize unafanya nini hapo nje? Tell me right now. So even in this digital world and trying to develop, you have to allow, and I will keep repeating this shielding, this helicopter parenting as you're speaking about, we have to stop. You were saying you entered a matatu, your father was okay, your uncles were busy having panic attacks, but you survived. They will also survive.
And that's a story for a child. I went to the matatu without my parents. That's a story and a half.
Exactly. Yeah. So yes, you will survive. You will survive. You will be beaten. You'll survive. But I think it's. I don't know if it's going to. But there's this psychologist. She's Dr. Susan David. She's a Harvard professor, and she talks about sometimes we tend to not engage into humanly themes to create fiction. And you should listen to her. She's just a fantastic. Okay, let me not digress because I've just digressed there.
No. But you've mentioned something, that doing humanly things. So I remembered growing up, I used to kick a fuss when my mom is cooking chapati. I wanted the last one. The last one is main.
Okay.
And I was hardly 10. But because I'm too young, and obviously I'm not going to place it on the pan without burning myself. So that was mentorship and training 101. Yeah. And it got to a point whereby you learn how to be self-sufficient, quote unquote, when you're still young. Your parent could have traveled. Maybe they went for an event, or maybe they even went to work and they're caught up in traffic. But you know how to, prepare a quick meal for yourself without burning the house down. Obviously, you do not introduce some of these things just to any child without an inkling of responsibility. And I think those are the simple things. How many children? And I know I'm thinking or interpreting this as a typical African child, as a Kenyan child. The kids that do not make their beds, they are made for by the help. The kids that do not wash the dishes. Growing up, that was unheard of in my parents' house, and I bet the same for you and a lot of millennials. And it can be simple things as that. Doing the laundry, making your bed, doing, sit out there, learn how to be bored. When you learn how to be bored, you start getting creative.
Exactly. Go be bored. Then you'll discover, kumbe I'm an engineer, I can what is it called? I can actually
become innovative.
Yes, and nijenge gari. I'm trying to build a vehicle.
Yeah.
You can, and it's boredom.
I remember when I was young, holding a screwdriver, trying to figure out who's this person speaking in the radio. And that's how it became gadgety. Don't even go there. That's how it became gadgety, because it's that curiosity. You're very young. You're looking at the radio and you're thinking, okay, I can hear someone. Where is this person?
That's voice coming from.
You take the screwdriver. Your parent finds you there. What are you doing? I'm trying to look for the person in the radio.
Yes.
Yeah. But I think people need to embrace boredom. Be it a parent, be it a child. You really don't need to have life with activity all through. Sometimes, and God forbid, may the lights not go off. But if you remember back in the day when the lights went off and you were watching TV as a family, there would be silence and then someone would start stories in the dark. And they used to be the best stories ever. But nowadays, what happens? If there is a blackout or, internet fluctuates or whatever, you're very quick to get dressed and get into the car and go. Just go create traffic on the roads. Instead of just sitting, read a book, do some arts, get creative, be your own company. So I think that is what we need when you say do things humanly, simple things. It doesn't need to be complex. You just need to remember that you're human and you don't have to solve all the problems in the world.
They will always be there anyway, and you found them.
And again, here I am
You
digressing. Now, in a world that rewards achievement, visibility, and constant comparison, what are we actually teaching our children about success? Are we raising children who know how to achieve, but not necessarily how to fail, rest, cope with disappointment, or know their worth beyond their performance? Helicopter parents present in that one.
You know, Rosalind, do you know we were actually taught to chase success?
Yes, I mean, you had to get the good grades and go get employed. We were not taught how you can be an entrepreneur.
So you were taught read, read. You were taught if you don't read, you will not buy, you won't get a car, you won't get a good husband or good wife, you will not go to university, you will not succeed. Basically, if you fail or you become number last, in fact, woe unto you. You are number 2, then you become number 10, number 15. It is a meeting, it is a lecture, and that's why it's maybe millennials are maybe we are just vichwangumos, I don't know.
Trauma.
It's trauma. But we were taught that you have to do something. You must. It's you have to do something, to do something, to do something. I remember and when you say to do something, is my daughters keep telling me, Mom, I don't think you know how to rest. Yeah. And my daughter is here busy trying to describe for me the 18-year-old, Mom, I need to teach you how to be lazy, as in to do nothing. You wake up, you stare, you eat. And she has a method to her method. Let me not use the word I want to use because I know she's listening. There's a method she has. Wake up, you stare, you eat, do nothing, scroll, sleep, walk outside, go back to sleep, and learning to do nothing. And it's a struggle. But at least I'm trying nowadays. If I'm on leave, I'm on leave. If I need to sit on my hands, I'll sit on my hands. I'm even saying that I will not have social media. I don't go to social media during the week. And so you have to learn because it's this business. You have to do something. If you're not in a podcast, you're writing a book, you're in a panel. Like you see now, even you and I in a panel, now in a podcast. You're doing something, you're sitting on a board, and it becomes so it's much, it's a lot. And you see, you're trying to teach this generation that doesn't understand. They're saying just relax, stare, enjoy. So here we are to blame. So I think this is a good opportunity for us to also start learning that perhaps success is also not those things. It's not just gathering. Success is you're healthy. Success is you're alive. Success is that your children actually grew up to be respectable human beings. Success is that your children can say thank you. Success is you have good manners. So I think we have to rethink what success is because that's what we were taught. Perfect opportunity for us to unlearn and learn what success is.
I couldn't agree more. We need to redefine what success is.
Yeah.
Because we've always treated it as number one. But number one for X person is not the same as Y.
No.
And yes, I agree with your daughter. It's very important for us to embrace the nothing box. The day you
Wow.
just wake up,
I like it.
you know, and I've done it a couple of times. You wake up, and that day you do not want to do anything other than you'll wake up, brush your teeth, make your bed, which you'll still go back to. You're
Yeah.
just resting. You're not doing laundry. You're not doing anything. You just want to zone out.
Yes.
Yeah. And sometimes we forget that the best time for your body to recalibrate, for you to rethink or even get solutions, is when you're not doing anything. Because when you're ever so busy, your body does not know how to stop. And that's why there are people who struggle to sleep because they're still thinking.
Yeah. Because your body is just.
Where others are the kind, when they say goodnight, in hardly 5 minutes, they are out. Because their systems know, okay, it's time to shut down. And they just shut down like, that PC back in the day. Just, and you're out.
Yeah.
And I think we need to teach our children the value of success is not always number one. Success is you becoming more self aware, you growing your emotional intelligence, you grooming your talents.
Yeah.
Success, visibility is not you doing funny stunts on TikTok just for the sake. Yeah. It's realizing that the people that are also big on social media, that is not the life that they lead. That is just what they are selling. That is like
Yes.
their office. It's not them. It's to differentiate who's in your circle. Success is knowing that you can have, when you ask who are your friends, and you're there naming 10 of them, and then something happens and only two show up or even one. Yeah. It's knowing the difference between being alone and being lonely. Those are two different concepts. Yeah. So I think, yes, and it's that aspect of unlearning.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying success is bad. I'm not saying that being
Yes.
ambitious and going for, aiming for your dreams is not bad. No, by all means, go for
Oh,
it
ambition is good. Oh, yes, exactly. Absolutely.
because I subscribe to the same.
Mm-hmm.
However, it's also to allow ourselves the the need to sit in it. I once had a conversation with a psychiatrist, and I can be at the time we were having a discussion, and she said, "You wrote that off very quickly." So the discussion, the response was of a negative nature, and I went on. I'm like, there's nothing much I can do about it. Move on. And she said, "No, you need to sit in it. You need to process that emotion." Now, when you're so used to doing things and brushing them off, ultimately they'll come knocking, all of them. And then they don't have manners. They will come, all of them, with all the histories from 1965. Yeah. And the fact that you do not allow yourself to sit through emotions and process an emotion for what it truly is, it means that it's just a ticking time bomb. It's going to catch up. So we need to realize that what we as parents, what we as aunties and uncles and all manner of adults, what we tolerate is what our children see, they perceive, and they absorb.
Right.
And then let us not be surprised that we get a reflection of who we truly are. So we need to, both parties need to change. And for us to realize pain is part of life. Failure is just actually a way that you have realized that's actually not the way I should have done it. So can we do it again? Yeah. So are we going to grow tenacity? You cannot grow tenacity if everything is just handed to you. You need to feel that pain. You need to go to Nairobi and buy, when you're buying, some secondhand clothes from the hawkers, and they just look at you and see, I'm going to make money from you. And then your friend comes and buys the same thing and they had a discounted rate. And you realize, oh, I can negotiate. We need to learn these things.
Yeah.
Now, talking about a village, nowadays the village it has either shrunk depending on where you are, or it has, expanded. But what happens when the village has changed or disappeared? How do modern parents build meaningful support system? And you already mentioned one of the ways earlier, the church, your friend circles and all. When your family is away, what roles would schools, employers, communities, and technology play in that village?
First of all, if your children are going to school, your biggest village is your teacher. Your teacher is your number one. The person teaching your child is your number one village elder or
Nyumba
head of the
kumi.
clan, nyumba kumi.
Mhm.
And I don't know if I want to say this, but I'll say it. Wacha niseme nitoke. We've been educated so much. I don't know why I'm whispering. We've been educated so much that sometimes we have egos. So now, Roslyn, you're a HR professional. You didn't learn education. Then you go and you start, and you alluded to it, by the way. You go and you start lecturing your child's teacher on how they need to teach. I mean, sit down and learn. Okay? The village that we have is what we have, is what we'll use. Where I stay, we have with the ladies in our chama because we live close to each other. And what we have told ourselves is that if you see my child, any of our children, in the streets, doing what they're not supposed to be doing, you better ask that child, Roslyn, unafanya nini hapa? And you call their name. You say, wenda usalimie mom to know that you have a home. Meaning it is about time you go home. And that's how we've decided. And we've said we will correct, and we have given each other permission for that correction to take place. Because you see, nowadays what happens is that, and you talked about it, my child has failed exams, I'm going to blame the teacher. Mtoto wangu ashiki masomo. Sasa ni mimi niko na makosa, ni mtoto ama ni mwalimu?
Sorry, we seem to have lost connectivity, but I believe Motoni will be joining us again. And she was talking about the value of accountability, holding people accountable, and the fact that egos have no place in if the village is to succeed. So the same way when we're in our professional places and we expect people, to respect what we do, I think we also need to be at a place whereby we also need to allow other professionals to handle. Say if it's a school, let the teachers handle that space. But we also obviously we will demand for respect and accountability.
What has happened?
Sorry, we lost you there, but welcome back.
Oh, sorry.
Not to worry. I was talking about accountability, where you're talking about accountabilities and the fact that egos have no place in the current society. And the same way that we expect people to respect us in our respective professional places or careers, we also need to respect the teachers to do their work. Obviously, we will demand for respect, integrity, and for them to be accountable. But let us not be the blockers.
Exactly.
Proceed.
So to your question is exactly that. The village is what is around you. It has changed. You have co-workers, you have people in your church, you have your neighbors, you have where you go and get groceries. There has to be somebody that is a responsible adult, okay, if you're not responsible, better than you, who can help you? I mean, Rosalind, me, I like being practical. I mean, let's
Yeah.
just be practical. I mean, you can't say that we're just living in isolation, unless you're a person who can't be helped. But I'm saying we create the village that is there. You have parents. There is somebody who actually can help you navigate because it's a lot. And sometimes it's a lot for parents. It's a lot in this world. I mean, the economy is where it is. I mean, it's just all over. So and I think and I'm hopeful that if we just try and say let's just try to use what we have, as Moses was asked by God, what is in your hand? In our hand there's quite a lot we can use.
Now, what is in our hands? Well, that can also include the fact that we should also, as parents, allow the kids to be expressive.
Yes.
Give an example. I'm not saying that they should talk back, because if you talk back, I will reset your manufacturer setting. Indiscipline has no has no space. No. However,
We'll restore settings very quickly.
I will reset your manufacturer settings. But for
Yeah.
example, how many times when a child is taken to hospital, the child is allowed to express themselves and say what is wrong? Because oftentimes you will find the parent is there. So he has been, she has been. And then the doctor is looking at the child, and then the parent will go, Siwonge, speak. But even before the child opens that mouth, the parent has already decided where they are sick, what the symptoms are, and what needs to be done. So again, helicopter parenting. You cannot, your child has to experience life. You cannot prevent life experiences. No matter how painful it is, you cannot shield them from everything. There are those that are within your control, there are those that are not within your control. And at the same time, we all know there are adults that will call their parents to, do simple tasks for them because you enabled it that way.
Correct.
So, as we seek accountability of, the parents and the adults, can we also ensure that we are allowing ourselves to have difficult, not so comfortable discussions about life? I'll give you an example. Back in the day in primary school, when they're starting to teach you about sexually transmitted diseases, tell you what my parents did. So where my dad used to work, there was an education office, and they used to have, back in the day, for VCRs. So they had VCRs with the content that is usually used in schools. So you had the introduction in school. That was brought home, and you were told, sit and watch. Let me tell you, Maina, as we normally say, let me tell you, Maina.
Let me tell you.
You watch it, you understand it. And the fear of God is instilled in you to the
Immediately.
extent the thought of doing anything stupid. No, you will not even want to consider it. What am I trying to say? Sometimes you just have to learn the hard way. Sometimes you provide the lesson and let them make the judgment call. So, yes, it takes a village. Get that village. And can people allow themselves to be held accountable? Because it's one thing being speak, it's another reality. Yeah. So parents also allow yourselves to be uncomfortable. And when those uncomfortable, discussions come about, rise to the occasion. Because, unfortunately, we will not be here forever. And at the same time, there are kids that are not having the same luxuries that you're providing for your child in the same world. So don't make it too cushy that they lose their inherent survival skills,
Mm.
help them grow and groom them.
I love that. I love what you're saying.
Now, as we come to a close, I cannot believe that an hour is already over.
Oh, yeah. Wow.
I know. If we strip away
Mm.
the pressure to raise the perfect child, what
Mm.
does raising a good human actually mean? What should we be prioritizing now? Emotional intelligence, resilience, curiosity, kindness, independence, adaptability, and perhaps most importantly, what do we need to unlearn as parents so that our children have room to become who they are rather than what we imagined they should be?
I love this question, and I love it because I don't know if it's Denzel who said it, and he said it the other day. He said, "With so many things coming back in style, I can't wait when morals, respect, and intelligence trend again."
I agree. We could use that.
That's Denzel. He said that, and I was like, "That's an amazing."
Mhm.
Rosalind, there are things that cannot change. Uh, Respect, creating, teaching them to be simply a good human being. Teach them to be respectful, be kind, keep time, eat with your mouth closed. When you finish your food, take your plate to the kitchen. When you wake up, clean after yourself, make your bed. I mean, there are things that you have to keep teaching. No matter how many degrees you get more than the thermometer, there are things which you have to keep at the basic level. Respect authority. I have there's a there's a it's called irreducible minimums
Mhm.
that I used to tell my children when they were young. I used to tell them I really don't, it doesn't matter who it is, especially the people you cannot disrespect. The house manager, the person who's cleaning, the person who is maybe a watchman. If I even hear, I will restore your factory settings immediately. So to your question is, and I'll just leave it to what Denzel said. He said, with so many things coming back, morals, respect. So for me, I would say we have to unlearn the idea that our children are our projects. They're not our projects. Our work is to instill in them values, to give them good roots, and to give them room to become who they need to be.
I agree. Totally. The realization that your child, one, is not your project, it's an individual. So yours is just to ensure that the motherboard has the right things, the values,
Yeah.
integrity, that they grow to be respectable human beings. And I think for me, I would challenge or I would invite people. There are two movies that come to mind, and they're old movies. They're movies from the 90s or
Mm.
early 2000s. One is Coach Carter. It features
Wow.
Samuel L. Jackson. And that movie, Coach Carter, typical Samuel L. Jackson vibes is if you are not performing in class, you are not going to play basketball. And the parents pushed back. And Coach Carter was like, show me the grades and you can play ball. The other was, the other movie is Remember the Titans, Denzel Washington. And I know that movie has a bit of, it's also addressing aspects to do with racism, but it's the discipline and the theme behind it.
Right.
And I think if we were to, back in the day, movies were movies. Truth be told, movies were movies back in the day. But respect is not sold in a supermarket. Trust is not sold in a supermarket. Those are things that you groom, and that is how you will gain trust from other people. That is how more doors are going to open. So I think for me, yes, I totally agree with you. As parents, let us unlearn the idea that what you had in mind about your child. Stop living your life through your child. Let your child be a child and let them grow. When they fail, you will be there going, so what happened? And it's not for you necessarily to go, I told you so, although sometimes you
Yes.
cannot help but say, I told you so. There are instances that demand for the I told you so moment. But it's an opportunity to learn what was the lesson. Because as they say in psychology, until you learn the lesson, that experience will continue coming in a different shape, but the lesson, until you learn, you just have to come to that realization. Muthoni,
Good point.
thank you very much. I think we can talk about this till the sun turns into an eclipse. But
Yes.
here we are. Tonight's topic was raising humans in a very different world. And tonight we have looked at it not necessarily on an overly digital manner, but it is more to do with who we are as the adults and the expectations that we are putting out there for our children. But at the same time, what we need to do, or we can encourage people to do for us to get, good people coming up. Good people that can stand on their 2 feet, that will not always scream and be running to mommy and daddy because you have done, the great job and they're just going out there and flourishing. Are we going to get it perfect from the word go? No. But the beauty of it is that consistency is going to allow for people to be. Muthoni, asante sana. Parting shots from you?
No, I've learned a lot also from you. I think I've learned a lot about. I know you're an expert in HR. Just your nuggets, and also I appreciate the feedback from one of your viewers. And thank you for having me. It's also sometimes when you hear even somebody else talking, you start also retrospecting, because I think raising people, or doesn't necessarily mean raising your own children also, where you're mentoring, it's good to be reminded. I keep saying it's good to be reminded. Even as I was speaking, I was saying, oh yeah, I'm here to let them become, not control. It's not their project. So thank you for having me. And thank you for the opportunity to be here. Asante sana.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that. Kelvin, that joined us, provided feedback on the chat. Asante sana for joining the session. Thank you to those that have also joined us through YouTube. Olive, I cannot make out the name for the next, and also Money. Thank you very much for joining us. It has been quite interesting. I think this is one of those sessions where we can have a lunch and everyone will definitely have a nugget or two to share. As always, thank you so much for joining and for your patronage. It's always a pleasure to have you here. Until the next session of Unplugged with Ross, I will see you next time. Good night, depending on where you're joining us. Good morning. In any case, have yourself a lovely evening and brilliant week ahead. Asante, and see you next time. Bye.